Elara Foss had learned, a long time ago, not to expect kindness from her own family. She was 17 years old, and she had never shifted. In Crimson Hollow, that single fact defined her entire life. Every wolf found their form by the age of 13 or 14, sometimes 15 if they were slow. Elara's sisters, Brenna and Talia, had shifted at 12, their grey coats sleek and strong, their fighting skills already praised across the pack. Elara had nothing, no fur, no fangs, no claws, just a girl who fed the pack's wolves in the kennels and cleaned the mess no one else wanted to touch. Her mother, Rosalind Voss, had stopped introducing her as a daughter years ago. At gatherings, she called Elara the girl who helps in the kennels, as if the word daughter was too painful to attach to someone so disappointing. Her father rarely spoke to her at all. Brenna and Talia treated her like an embarrassment to be managed, whispering behind her back and sometimes not bothering to whisper. Elara had built a small, quiet world for herself in the kennels. She loved the wolves there, even the ones who were too wild for anyone else to handle. She talked to them in the mornings, sang to them in the evenings, and found a strange comfort in their company that she never found among people. The wolves never called her worthless. They never rolled their eyes at her. On the morning of the Unity tribute, her mother pulled her out of the kennels by the wrist, her grip too tight to be gentle. "You will attend," Rosalind said. "The Alpha King himself will be there. It would look strange if you weren't." Elara did not want to go. The Unity tribute was a ceremony where every unshifted wolf over 16 was tested in front of the entire pack, and sometimes in front of visiting nobility. It was supposed to be a chance for late bloomers to prove themselves. For Elara, it had only ever been a stage for humiliation. "Please," she said quietly, "I don't want everyone staring at me again." "You should have thought of that before you failed to shift," Rosalind snapped, and that was the end of the conversation. The tribute ground was already crowded when they arrived. Pack members lined the edges in their finest clothes, murmuring about the arrival of Alpha King Cale Ashbourne, ruler of the entire Ashbourne Empire, the man whose word could raise or destroy any pack in the region. Elara had never seen him before. She had only heard stories that he was as fair as he was fierce, and that he had spent years searching for something no one could name. She kept her eyes on the ground as her name was called. Whispers followed her the entire walk to the center of the circle. She could hear Brenna and Talia laughing softly somewhere behind her, and she felt her face burn with the old, familiar shame. The elder in charge of the ceremony asked her to try to shift, the same way he had asked her every year since she turned 14. Elara closed her eyes and reached for whatever was supposed to live inside her, the wolf that never came. Nothing happened, just as it never had. A few people snickered. Her mother's jaw tightened with visible embarrassment. Then something changed. It started as warmth, deep in her chest, spreading slowly through her arms and legs, like sunlight breaking through clouds. Elara gasped, stumbling back, and the elder reached out to steady her, his eyes suddenly wide with alarm rather than pity. The warmth grew hotter, brighter, until it felt like her skin was made of light. She heard someone in the crowd cry out, but the sound felt distant, as if she were underwater. When the light faded, Elara was standing on 4 legs, not 2. Her coat was not grey like her sister's, not brown or black like most of the pack. It was pure white, brighter than snow, and it seemed to glow faintly even in the daylight. She could feel new strength in her body, a power that hummed beneath her skin like a second heartbeat. The tribute ground had gone completely silent. Then, from the front of the crowd, a voice broke the stillness. "It cannot be." Elara turned her wolf head toward the voice and saw Alpha King Cale Ashbourne, standing perfectly still, his dark eyes fixed on her, with an expression she had never seen directed at her before. It was not disgust, it was not pity, it was something closer to wonder. "The White Wolves," he said, loud enough for the entire crowd to hear. The bloodline everyone believed was gone. Murmurs rippled through the pack like wind through grass. Elara shifted back to her human form, shaking, confused, and suddenly aware that every single person who had once looked past her was now staring as though she were something precious. Cale approached slowly, the crowd parting for him without a word. He knelt in front of her, which no Alpha King had ever done for anyone in Crimson Hollow's history. "Do you know what you are?" he asked gently. Ilara shook her head, still trying to catch her breath. "I don't understand what just happened." "The White Wolves were guardians," Kale said. "An ancient bloodline said to appear only when the world needed them most. They were stronger than any other wolves, gifted with healing, and bonded to the moon in ways even alpha bloodlines like mine are not. Historians believe the last of them died out centuries ago." He studied her closely. "And yet here you are." Behind them, Ilara heard her mother's voice, suddenly sweet in a way it had never been before. "Ilara, sweetheart, come here. Let the king see you properly." Ilara turned to look at her mother, and for the first time in years, she saw something other than disappointment on Rosalind's face. She saw excitement, and worse, she saw calculation, as if her mother were already imagining the advantages a daughter like this could bring to the family name. Brenna and Talia were suddenly at her sides, looping their arms through hers, smiling as if they had never once mocked her. "We always knew you were special," Talia said, and the words made Ilara's stomach turn. "Did you?" Ilara asked quietly. "Because I remember things very differently." Her sister's smiles faltered, but they did not let go of her arms. Rosalind stepped closer, reaching out to smooth Ilara's hair as if she had done it 1,000 times before, though Ilara could not remember a single instance of her mother touching her gently. "We are so proud of you," Rosalind said. Ilara wanted to laugh and she wanted to cry, both at the same time. Years of being told she was worthless, years of eating alone, years of cleaning up after wolves who were treated with more warmth than she ever received, and now, because of a single unexpected shift, her family wanted to claim her as their pride and joy. Kale, still watching closely, seemed to notice the tension beneath the surface. "Perhaps," he said carefully, "Ilara should have some time to understand what has happened before anything else is decided." Rosalind's smile tightened, but she nodded, unwilling to argue in front of the Alpha King. That night, alone in the kennels one final time to say goodbye to the wolves she had cared for, Ilara let herself cry for the first time in years. She was not crying from sadness alone. She was crying from the strange, dizzying mixture of relief and grief that came with finally being seen, only to realize how much of her life had already passed unseen. The wolves nuzzled against her, sensing her sorrow, and she stayed with them long after the moon had risen, unwilling to let go of the one place that had never asked her to be anyone other than herself. In the days that followed, everything about Ilara's life changed, and yet nothing about how she felt truly did. She was moved out of the kennels and given a proper room in the main house, the kind of room her sisters had always had and she had always been denied. Servants who had once ignored her now curtsied when she passed. Her mother invited nobles to dinner just to introduce her. But Ilara found she could not simply forget the years that came before. Every kind word from her family now felt like a performance, a mask worn for an audience of one, the powerful king who had suddenly taken an interest in her. Kale visited often, officially to help her understand her new abilities, though Ilara suspected there was more to it than that. He taught her how to control the strange warmth that lived inside her now, how to call it forward without letting it overwhelm her. He was patient in a way no one in her life had ever been, and slowly, carefully, Ilara began to trust him. "They only love me now because of what I can do for them," she admitted to him one evening, sitting together near the edge of the training grounds as the sun set behind the trees. Kale was quiet for a moment. "Then their love was never really about you at all," he said. "It was about what you could give them. That is not love. That is greed wearing love's face." Ilara looked down at her hands. "Then what should I do?" "Decide what you want," Kale said simply. "Not what makes them proud, not what strengthens their name, what you actually want." No one had ever asked her that question before. Slowly, Ilara began to answer it for herself. She spent her mornings training with Kale, learning to master the light that lived beneath her skin, and her afternoons walking the grounds alone, simply enjoying the freedom of being outside without fear of ridicule. She discovered that her new strength came with a gift she had not expected, a quiet ability to sense pain in wounded creatures and ease it with nothing more than a touch. She used it first on an injured pup near the training fields, and when the small wolf's limp faded and it bounded happily back to its mother, Elara felt something settle inside her chest that had been unsettled for years. For the first time, her power felt like something that belonged to her, not something she was expected to perform for others. Kale noticed the change in her too. Where she had once flinched at sudden movements or lowered her eyes out of habit, she began to stand a little taller, speak a little louder, and meet the gazes of nobles who had once looked through her, as if she did not exist. He never pushed her to move faster than she was ready for, and that patience, more than anything else, was what made her trust him completely. As word of the last white wolf spread across the region, not everyone was pleased. Some packs feared what her existence meant for the balance of power. The white wolves, according to old legends, had once held influence that rivaled even the Alpha King's throne, and there were those who believed a bloodline with that kind of potential should never be allowed to grow strong again. During a diplomatic gathering meant to formally introduce Elara to neighboring pack leaders, a group of masked strangers attempted to seize her, hoping to use her power for themselves before she could be trained to defend it. Chaos broke out across the hall as guards rushed to respond, but Elara found herself surrounded before anyone could reach her. For a moment, old fear rose in her chest, the same fear that had kept her quiet and small for years. Then she thought of every insult she had swallowed, every night she had cried alone in the kennels, every time she had been told she would never be enough. She was done being small. The warmth rose inside her, no longer overwhelming but familiar now, like an old friend answering a call. She shifted, white light bursting through the hall, and for the first time, she did not shift out of fear or confusion. She shifted because she chose to. The masked strangers who had come to steal her power stumbled backward, clearly unprepared for the strength now radiating from her. Elara moved with a speed and precision she did not know she possessed, holding her ground until Kale arrived, cutting through the chaos to stand at her side. Together they drove the attackers out, and by the time it was over, the hall had fallen into stunned, respectful silence. It was Elara, not the guards and not even the Alpha King, who had stood her ground first. In the aftermath, Rosalind rushed to her daughter's side, praising her bravery in front of the gathered nobles. But Elara, still catching her breath, finally said the words she had been holding back for years. "I am done pretending we have always been close," she said, quiet but clear enough for those nearby to hear. "You didn't love me until I became useful to you. I won't forget that, even if you want me to." Rosalind's face went pale, but Elara did not wait for a response. She turned instead to Kale, who was watching her with something like pride shining in his dark eyes. "I want to build my own place," Elara told him. "Not because my family finally noticed me. Because I finally see myself." Kale offered his hand, not as a king claiming a prize, but as someone who had come to genuinely care for the girl who had once been dismissed as worthless. "Then let us build it together," he said, "as equals." Elara took his hand. In the months that followed, she left Crimson Hollow behind, choosing instead to stand at Kale's side as the last known white wolf, respected not because of the family name she was born into, but because of the strength, kindness, and courage she had shown when it mattered most. She never forgot the years of loneliness in the kennels, but she no longer let them define her. She had once been called worthless by the people who should have loved her unconditionally. Now she was known across the land as a legend reborn, proof that true worth was never something that could be given or taken away by others. It had been inside her all along, waiting patiently for the moment she was finally ready to let it shine.